Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership podcast, where we are seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBron. And this week, we are joined by a special guest, Kris Whitlow from Whitlow Nation. And
Hey,
we're excited to have him on as our guest this week, joining us again for our Rise Up series. Before we get into the topic, we want to thank all of our supporters, those of you that have been watching us from day one, or those that have just been recently joined the Unscripted crew. We thank you. We appreciate those that have subscribed to our YouTube channel there at Unscripted Authentic Leadership, those that are following us on our Facebook page, Unscripted Authentic Leadership. You can also follow us on Instagram at Unscripted Leadership. And also those that, if you do not want to watch the podcast, you can listen via any major podcast platform. You can stream us from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and also on Buzzsprout. So all of those that have been supporting us, again, we say thank you. As I mentioned, we are not by ourselves this week. Once again, not just myself and John, but we are joined by a special guest, Kris Whitlow. Before we get into the topic, fellas, how's everybody doing?
doing good, man. How about y'all?
I'm good. Having a good day.
Yeah, man. Going good, man. Thanksgiving in a couple of days. And
yeah.
Facts. I'm excited.
So definitely excited about that, man. So listen, man, let's get into the episode topic. This week, we want to introduce our special guest, Kris Whitlow. And our episode topic this week is Started from the Bottom, Now I'm Here.
Hey.
And so, Kris, we just want you to kind of introduce yourself, man, and tell us a little bit about who you are and tell our audience where you come from and what you do. And after that, we'll get into the story of why you're here and why you are a candidate for the Rise Up series. Kris, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, like he said, my name is Kris Whitlow. I'm a Detroit native, so born in Michigan and grew up in a military household. So we bounced around to different states and things like that. And we moved to Dayton, Ohio in 2010. And so I have been in Dayton, Ohio since, and I also do music. I'm a Christian artist, and so that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. So you do music and Christian artist. Now, what genre specifically are you in?
So I do mostly Christian rap, but I just always say Christian artist just because if I want to branch out into, a different type of genre or something like that, I have room to do that, but still a Christian nonetheless. So
Absolutely.
Very talented for anybody who's listening. We'll plug his stuff later, but very talented for real.
Yeah, definitely. We have your Instagram and your YouTube information that we'll plug there for the listeners so they can go check you out, man.
Hey.
Listen, man, we brought you on so you can share your story. John came up with a brilliant idea of the Rise Up series. And basically it's where we're interviewing individuals that have been knocked down by life, but have picked themselves back up. And we want to hear those inspirational stories so someone else can glean from your story and know that they can make it through anything that life has thrown their way. And so, man, we want to hear a little bit about your story. Kind of share with our audience, Kris, and share as much as you want to, bro. And this is a safe environment, and so this is family. You're amongst family, and share your story, man, so somebody else can be motivated, inspired, and so they'll know that they can make it as well.
Absolutely. And feel free to, chime in if you need me to clarify anything as I go along. So
Of course.
But so I'll just kind of give y'all my musical journey and how things have transpired. So I graduated high school here in Dayton, and I went to Beaver Creek High School, and I was actually an athlete coming out of high school. So I originally wanted to do sports. So when I went to, I ended up going to Wright State I wanted to do football, but, you know, they obviously don't have a football team. So just in order to, you know, kind of maintain that close bond, you know, with the athletes and stuff like that, I thought I would do athletic training, and, you know, I thought that would be cool. However, when I got in the right state, my mind it just wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? I was a class clown, you know what I'm saying? So my mentality going into college was much of the same as it was in high school. So I just thought I could goof off and still get the grades and things like that. But my performance in college was so bad, I got kicked out my freshman year for bad grades. And so that just kind of, you know what I'm saying, that hit me just different, because I was never the type to make bad grades or anything like that. So it was just definitely different for me. And then I ended up going to Sinclair for a year, and I got back into Wright State. And when I got back into Wright State, that's when I first, you know what I'm saying, felt the unction to want to do music. But I felt it was, you know, like too far-fetched of a thing to accomplish, just because society says you have to get the 4-year degree. That's the blueprint to be successful. And so because of that, I kind of just kept trying to trudge along in school. And I knew I wanted to do music, and I also had a slight entrepreneur feel to me too. So I was thinking, hey, if I do business management, I can, you know, have my own business with the music, put 2 and 2 together. I don't need a record label or something like that. I can be the boss man and kind of go that route. But I got into accounting, business statistics, economics. These were my classes that I did when I got back into Wright State. And so that just threw me for a whole trip. And I failed and got kicked out again for bad grades. And so I'm starting to feel like a uber failure, just because I've just never, that up until that point, that was probably the most adversity that I had experienced. And so being on my own, it just hit differently for me, because I really didn't know how to adjust to, you know, the circumstances that life was bringing me. And on top of that, I was working at Chick-fil-A. I had worked there for 5 years, and I had moved up one time into leadership. So I was already in a leadership position, and I was trying to move up again. And they weren't really rocking with me with moving up to the next leadership position. And so that was just frustrating. And I just had some other things going on too, you know, just things in life. And so I just wasn't coping correctly either. I was still kind of, I grew up in church and things like that, but it was more of a religious thing. It wasn't necessarily a relational thing. And so I just thought it was something you do every Sunday. And, you know what I'm saying, that was really it. And so when I was getting hit with these different things, instead of going to God, I started to turn into drugs, just, you know, smoking, drinking, just doing stuff like that. And on top of that, I was having sex, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. I had like met some girls off the girls basketball team at UD. And so, you know what I'm saying, I was bagging them, and I was feeling myself. You know, I thought I was like, this is the life. This is what it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? But those things really weren't bringing me happiness. It was actually probably leading me on a more downward spiral than I really expected. And so I took a year off from college, and I'm like, you know, let me focus, and, you know, let me really dig deep and see what I want to do. Because I still had this burning passion. Like every day I woke up, I'd be like, man, I just really want to do music. But it just felt like there was a roadblock to where I couldn't really, you know what I'm saying, chase that. And so I took a year off, got back into school again, because I just didn't feel confident in chasing music. And I remember I was talking to my parents one day, and I was like, y'all, like, what should I do? You know what I'm saying? This business management thing ain't going to work. This athletic training, it's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? Help me out. And they was like, well, you know, your mom's a teacher, I'm a teacher, so you be a teacher. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I gotta be a teacher, bro. So I was like, well, what's the easiest thing that I could do, you know what I'm saying, academically? So I was like, physical education, you know.
It doesn't say gym teacher.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could hoop with the kids, no papers, you know, it's about to be turned. But my first class was like, it just hit me differently. We were talking about drugs, like we talking about heroin, meth, just a bunch of off the chart stuff for real. Just, if you have a kid or something that's on that type of stuff, it just prepares you for how to deal with it. But for some reason, I'm sitting in the class and I'm like, bro, I'm really trying to do like all these drugs for real. Like, just because I was really hurt, and I was still hurt that, now I'm seeing people on social media, they're graduating college, and I'm still technically a freshman, sophomore in college. You know what I'm saying? So it seems like people are progressing, but I've been stuck for the past 4 years. And so I just really got into just a bad space and was still coping negatively. And I started getting depressed. And what made it difficult about my depression was, like, as a Black man, I feel like you can't really, during that time, it felt like I couldn't really tell anybody what was going on, just because it wasn't something that was really talked about. You know what I'm saying? If you're a Christian, you know what I'm saying, it's a prayed out situation. Or if you don't have that religious background, then it's just, hey, you know what I'm saying, suck it up. You know what I'm saying? Just be a man. That's a part of the life type deal. But for me, like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like I had nobody I could talk to. And then I remember I talked to my friends about it one time, and they was saying how they was like, you don't know what real struggle is type deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, we grew up with single parent. We grew up in single parent homes, like, stuff like that. So you don't really know what struggle was. And so that really, I think, actually plummeted me deeper, because it just made me feel like I was alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, for like my friend group, I just looked at it as like, you know what I'm saying, if y'all my friends, like, no matter what I'm going through, you know what I'm saying, help pull me up, you know what I'm saying, because I'm gonna help pull you up, even if I can't identify or relate 100%. And so just long story short, I kind of got like a plan on how to like commit suicide. And the night that I was gonna do it, I just ironically hung out with one of my friends, and this was a female, but she was still like super cool. She was a big believer in Christ, you know what I'm saying? So she was actually super helpful. And I remember I was just telling her bits and pieces of stuff that was going on in my life and things that I was struggling with. And she had actually like tried committing suicide like multiple times, but, by the grace of God, like, she's still here. And so, she said, well, I finally just told her everything. I was like, look, your little advice ain't helping. Like, this is what's actually going on. And so she was like, wow, like, that's crazy. So you have two choices. Like, you could either go to your parents' house and tell them what's going on, or you could go to a hospital and tell them what's going on. But either way, you got to tell them what's going on. So I was like, me and my parents, we really didn't have that good of a relationship. Like, like my senior year of high school into college, me and my dad, we were like fighting a lot, like arguing a lot, because he had been deployed like my sophomore, junior year of high school. So I was really kind of, I don't want to say I was like the man of the house, you know what I'm saying? I was the oldest. So it was weird having to submit to somebody who had been gone for a while. And so we were arguing a lot. So I really didn't feel like I could tell him or my mom, because I just feel like they're like, oh, they just would have freaked out, you know what I'm saying? So I went to the hospital, and just while I was there, I was like, God, like, if you're real, you know what I'm saying, I need you to prove it. Otherwise, like, I'm gonna just be right back where I started, wanting to commit suicide again. And so when I got out, one of my friends, he hit me up, and he was just telling me like, hey man, I heard what happened. Let's hang out. So we started hanging out, and I promise I'm gonna bring it back around with the music. It's just this was the backstory that got me to, being in this lane. So we hung out at the University of Dayton, and we went to some gas station, and he was talking to the lady. He's like, hey ma'am, how you doing? Do you need prayer for anything? And I just looked at him weird, because like, I thought Jesus and God was in four walls of a church, you know what I'm saying? But my man is actively out here on the street, and it was just different. You know what I'm saying? I had never seen nothing like that before. So I'm looking at him weird. And he was like, hey, do you need prayer for these? She's like, my ankle hurts. Like, can you pray for her? So she comes around the counter, and she like sticks her ankle out. She's like, boom. And then my friend was like, pray for her ankle. And so I look at him super sideways. I'm like, pray for her. What, bro? Well, I just, this is the same day I got out the hospital. So I'm puzzled because I'm just trying to chill. I'm just trying to have fun with a friend, But
you want Chipotle and a nap, right?
seriously. So I put my hands on her ankle and I like pray for it. And she starts like yelling. She's like, ah, like my ankle. And I'm like, what? And she said, it feels better. And I just look at her like, you lying. Cause like I had never, number one, I didn't feel nothing happen. I just prayed. And so she was like, it feels better. She starts jumping up and down, trying to test it and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we gotta go, man. This is weird. And so long story short, I keep seeing stuff like this post-hospital. Like there was a day where I went to a gas station and God asked me, I heard in my head, like, ask this lady if she draws. And I had never heard nothing like that in my entire life. So I asked the lady, I'm like, hey, do you draw? And she's like, how do you know that? I was like, God, like we lost together. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, God, she said, yeah, I gave up drawing a year ago because, my friends and family, they said it's not possible. You know what I'm saying? So she just gave it up. And I said, do you have any drawings or anything like that? She pulls out a picture of a guitar. Like it looked this real. It looked like you could play it off the page type deal. And so I'm like, well, I think God might be telling you need to keep drawing. You know what I'm saying? And so all of this keeps happening, like just different scenarios, boom, bap, bop. And then every time it would happen, he would ask me, am I real yet? Am I real yet? You know what I'm saying? And so that shook me. That, number one, it just let me know that I had purpose and that God really cared about me and he wanted, he just had a purpose for me wanting to live. So even if I didn't have a degree, you know what I'm saying? Even if I didn't have the best job in the world, like he had purpose for me. And then on top of that, the friend that I was hanging out with, he ironically did music as well. He was a rapper too. And so we were hanging out just a bunch. Like he just really cared, you know what I'm saying? He didn't want to see me die. So we start hanging out a lot and we writing a lot. We wrote out a whole project, and the first single we put out, it got like 1,500 views or something. And to the normal person, they probably thinking that's not a lot. But for me, I was shook, you know what I'm saying? Just because for the first song I put out, it got that much traction. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have the best quality or nothing like that. We put we put maximum effort into it, but we didn't have no record label behind us or nothing like that. But for that to be the first song, it was just amazing that it got that type of response. And so that really blessed me. And on top of that, I wrote a song a couple weeks after I had got out the hospital, just because I just had people telling me like, hey, you're not going to be able to keep up this Christian thing. Cause I let certain people go once I got out the hospital for a while. And I said, cause I just wanted to get focused. And they were like, yeah, you're going to be right back with us doing the same thing, going to strip clubs, drinking, all this stuff. You're going to be that guy again. And so I was just kind of writing my frustrations out in a song. And like that song actually reached the ears of a mainstream artist a couple years ago. And I'm not going to say the name because I'm not allowed to at this time, but they were a legit, like, big mainstream artist, and they wanted to collab. However, they had a relative that they wanted me to put on the track as well in order for me to work with him. And I didn't know that guy for real. And when he came to the studio, we didn't have a real good connection. It wasn't any beef or anything like that, but it just didn't seem like he was as invested into the song as I was. And it meant a lot to me, that song did, just because of the place that I had came out of. So that didn't work out, but just the scripture, God will put you before great men, you know what I'm saying? Things like that, that really slapped me in the face, because it's not even a Christian artist, you know what I'm saying? This was just a basic, like, mainstream artist. And so God was just really like, hey, you know what I'm saying? I got you, and just keep doing it my way, and we gonna get there type deal. And so that's just kind of the backstory. And I just put out a project a couple weeks ago, actually. And what blessed me about this one was God told me I can't put it on streaming platforms. And so, I'm like, bro, what? Every artist puts every project on streaming platforms. That makes no sense, my guy. And we were battling back and forth because there was two options. Either I'm not hearing God correctly or, I'm crazy. It's one or the other, And so I give it a shot. I say, hey, I ain't gonna put it on the streaming platforms. I'm gonna just put it on YouTube. And he said, just ask people to put their money where their mouth is. If they want to support, ask them, give $5, $10 or whatever, right? So I had 12 to 13 people cash at me the day I put out the project. And I'm just shook because just as a normal artist, in order to monetize, you typically have to be that guy that's getting 100,000 streams or, some astronomical number just to profit off of the work that you put in or to see some real return, you know what I'm saying? And right out the gate, I just got blessed with like a lot of money. And so I was shook. This was the first day, like 13 people cash at me. And then the next day I had left to go to a meeting and I come back to my apartment and my roommate said, hey, someone knocked on the door and they gave you this card. So, I'm like, okay, thanks, bro. And I opened up the card and it had $100 in it. And they were like, for the project. And so I'm just shook. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, God, you real, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not crazy. So it's a double win out here. And it actually helped me pay for my rent just for the situation that I was going through at that moment. But he told me, he said, if you didn't do it the way that I told you, then none of this would have happened and you would have been in a tight space. So that's just kind of the background, and still obviously just working on marketing the current project and just working on some new stuff as well. So,
man. Okay. So you went to college in Lafayette, jump in whenever you want. Failed 2 times, right? So double failure, right? And that's totally fine. I failed lots of classes my freshman year too, but I don't know how I stayed in. So we're on the same page. My very first class was a chemistry class, and I got a D in that class. I guess that's not a fail, but it pretty much is in college. Anyways, I wrote some things down, so I'm looking over.
Heck yeah.
And then failed out twice. Kept trying, but it seems to me that a lot of this stemmed from trying to follow the direction that others thought you should go.
Yeah.
Right. And to be quite honest, it probably wasn't God's plan for your life, but some well-intentioned people thought this should be your direction. Right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Absolutely.
Which then led to, obviously, when you're not walking in purpose, people can often feel very empty, right? If you're out there and you're listening, if you keep doing what you're doing every day and you feel empty at the end of every day, there's a good chance you're not walking in purpose. You're not walking in what you're supposed to do. It shouldn't feel that hard. I'm not saying there's not hard days, so don't have a bad day and say, I should quit. This is not what God wants for me. Right. But certainly, you should know that you're walking in the right direction. Let's see. And then you end up hospitalized. How long were you in the hospital for?
I was in for a week.
A week. And so just curious, if somebody else has something similar, I'm really glad your friend gave you that advice. Did you just go to like a regular hospital? What hospital do you go to for that kind of thing?
Nah, I was in a mental institution. I can't even remember the name of it, but I really was.
No, and that's okay. I was curious. The thought came to mind, like, if I had a friend going through something similar, where would I send them? And I thought, I don't actually know. So that's what I'm saying. Like, do they just go to a regular hospital and they have like an area for that, or you just looked it up?
It's like a unit for people that are going through that, and then there's also, this is the same spot, like people who are hallucinating, things like that. I was in. It was probably low key a psych ward, if I'm being real. So
I understand. But they will help you with that same ish situation though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you feel like it helped?
I think that, not to be hyper spiritual, but I think it was the catalyst to get me the true help that I needed, which was a relationship with God.
Okay.
So,
Good, bro.
Perfect.
I did want to say something that you had said that jumped out to me. Because you had mentioned how you were in a place of depression and you didn't feel as a Black man that you could communicate that because culturally, in the Black society, it is looked down upon or you are deemed upon as weak if we admit that we are in some type of mental traumatic state. And I think that that is a false notion, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And it brought to mind one of the episodes that we did previously on leadership. We talked about this term called a circle of safety, that every leader needs a circle of safety around them. Basically, what that is, you have people around you that are not just invested in what they can get out of you. They're not leeches. Um, People that are not just around you to get and to take withdrawals and never deposit into you, but they're there to provide a fence. They're there to provide guidance, instruction. They're there to keep it real with you. Steve Harvey says something very powerful, that if you look at your 5 closest friends around you, you can tell where you'll be going the next 5-10 years of the trajectory of your life.
yeah,
And I think John had even alluded to that, that there were people around you that sometimes we don't realize that the people that are around us can sometimes have the greatest influence on things that we naturally wouldn't even do. Because you had alluded to in your story, you said, you weren't even that type of student to get bad grades.
right.
You weren't that type of guy to get in those type of environments. But sometimes when you get around the wrong circle of safety, and you can get around wolves instead of around people that have your best interests at heart, you'll find yourself in situations and places and circumstances that you normally wouldn't find yourself in, simply because of that influence. And influence is absolutely real. Peer pressure is real. I like to say that God created us to be thermostats and not thermometers. So those that set the temperature, not those that are guided by others that set the temperature for their lives. And as John said, if you're walking around feeling empty, you're not really walking in purpose. So I think that even though you have like a roller coaster story, there's those ups and downs, as we talked about last week and even the week before leading up to it, all of those failures weren't really failures. They were failures in your eyes, and other people may have deemed them as failures and mistakes. But it was really just pushing you to your purpose. If all of those things wouldn't have happened, would you really be in the place that you are today?
Right.
I don't
Absolutely
believe
not.
so. Because you brought up the scripture about that God would bring you before great men. And I said this last week, I alluded to the scripture last week, that we know that all things work together for our good. And so not just the good things, but the bad things, the ugly things, and all of those things. And some of those things that you mentioned, somebody may watch this podcast and say, oh, that's not true. Somebody getting prayed for and their foot feeling better immediately. That may seem outlandish. But there's one thing to say that you don't believe someone because you heard it, but you can never deny someone's experience.
Exactly.
And so, no one can take that truth away from you, man, because that's something that you have experienced. John, what did you have, bro?
Hey, I love your story. I appreciate you sharing this with me. I know, with us and the audience. I know it's not always comfortable. Well,
Yeah.
for you, I think it is comfortable because you're comfortable with it with yourself now, which is really good to see, right?
Yeah.
So many people are so afraid of failing because they're not comfortable in their own skin, and they just they feel like they're worried about their Instagram stories. And you had mentioned something, and you said it was basically about how you went to class and you were just looking basically get back into that bad association at first. And bad association, we've done episodes on this, are like crabs in a bucket, right? They say if you stick one crab in a bucket, it crawls right out. If you stick multiple, none of them can crawl out because the other crabs always pull it back in.
Right.
And it's a true fact. that's bad association. They don't push you up, they keep you down, right? How did you get out of that association? So many people listening, we've all had bad association. I remember, in college, I don't feel like I had bad association. I just had a lot of just kind of mediocre associations, but that way, right?
Right.
Like good people, good friends, but I wanted to go and do other things. I was always interested in being an entrepreneur and things like that. And everybody else is like, why don't you just do school? And I did school, but I wanted to be something different. And at the time, it was weird to be an entrepreneur. And now it's popular. But, everybody's like, I don't think you should do that. Don't throw your college education away, things like that. And I remember breaking away from them quietly to go and focus in other areas because I got tired of combating the naysayers. How did you get away from that bad association, and start in addition to that, how did you seek new association?
Right. Well, I guess I do want to say that the people, I don't think they were necessarily bad. It was just the things that we were doing together weren't the best. But I think the hospital was really just kind of God's grace in resetting me and allowing me to have that space to, go a different way. And on top of that, my friend hit me up the day I got out the hospital, and he told me, let's hang out. And then it was more so on his end with just being intentional with hanging out. And we keep seeing stuff over and over. So that just hyped me up. And hey, we got to hang out again, bro. We got to, it just felt beyond me. You know what I'm saying? So I wish there was a formula, but.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So this is perfect. So you had great association available, right? Like we all do. Most of us do. But before you're talking about how some of your friends are like, you'll be back, we'll be smoking together, stuff like that. But God basically made aware, hey, you have some great people over here that love you. Mm-hmm. And then you spent time with them, and then you loved that. And so basically you went back to that association repeatedly, and you didn't necessarily tell your other friends, hey, get away from me. You just kind of quietly don't hang out, right, with anybody bringing you down. And that's a lot of people's situation. It's not that you scream at them and unfriend them all, because apparently that's a terrible thing to do these days. Just unfollow if you're listening. Unfollow, they won't know, right?
I low-key might have did something along those lines.
But you're fine. And everybody's on a different level. There's people in your life you have to completely cut them out. It may be intentional, and it may hurt their feelings. And you just have to say, I don't care. That's the really extreme. That's the family who are just terrible, that we all have a few of those. You're like, I cannot do this. I can't go to your house on Christmas anymore. And you're just going to have to know. But then there's always, you'll have the family where it's like, yeah, they don't love what I do, but I can hang out with them on a weekend. Sometimes it's fine. But then you have the other great associations, like your friend who you're praying with at the gas station, who more importantly was just showing you that he's walking in a purpose. And then you continued that association, which I would assume you agree with, made you feel better and helped you stay the path that you felt like you should.
Yeah. And I want to make a point to that because that's actually super good. The person that came in my life, he's not the type of person that I would have hung around. I would have considered him not cool. You know what I'm saying? Yep. I just thought he was weird, bro. You know what I'm saying? But it's difficult. You know what I'm saying? Because the group that I was hanging out with, I rocked with them heavy. That was my group. We did life together, even coming out of high school. But so it is hard to pull away, and especially when it seems like the circle that you go into is weird or not cool. You know what I'm saying? That's really a thing, unfortunately, that people still think about. So you just have to be willing to break away. And that saying where it says doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results is insanity. Right. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you do got to try something different, even if it does look weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of good intentioned people. Yeah. But the thing is the reason they don't like what you're doing is it makes them feel uncomfortable. That's why people push back on it. But anyways, Lafayette, you were going to say something.
Right. And I think that where I believe that God will give you people for your life.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is that there are some people in your life that are seasonal. You have to recognize that there was a certain group of people in my life that were in my life for this season. But as I transition and I go from level to level, God will always give you a group of people that are going to match each destination that you are going on into. And that's just how it is. I mean, think about it. There are people that we grew up with and we thought that we were best friends in the 5th grade. And now that we're in our 20s and 30s, we don't know where those people are. We
Right.
thought we graduated high school with these people and they were there for that season. But as we transitioned, as we matriculated and we matured, as we went on, your circle of friends should change. And that should be a good thing. We shouldn't be trying to hold on to the old group of people and connections and relationships, because that is a clear indication that we are not growing. If your people of the sphere of influence is not growing, and if you are the smartest person in the group of people that you are in, and the group of people that you associate with and that you connect with, they don't challenge you to grow, something's wrong. You're not growing and you're not moving forward. And so with each level, there's going to be that growing pain, and that circle of friends and that circle of influence and that circle of safety will always shift because you're going to a different season.
That's so good.
Yeah.
For real. Thank you.
Yeah.
Heat up.
Spot on.
Yeah, bro.
Nice.
Yeah. John, did you have anything else? Kris, did you have anything else?
I did have just like a word of advice, I guess.
Go ahead, man.
Just as we were talking. So I think a lot of people, might be in that same situation where maybe they have an idea of something that they want to do, but because of their surroundings and the things, the elements, the things that they face with, they might not want to break out just because of fear of those different obstacles. But I think you just really have to trust in, and it's so hard, but I believe God real. So you gotta trust in God that, He's not going to give you an idea that, for no reason, it's especially if it's concrete, you have some foundation, really, really try that and just don't be afraid. You gotta, it's your life at the end of the day, and as much as we want to make other people happy by doing what they want you to do, it's not always going to work. Sometimes the best way to, make people happy is by doing what you want to do. And I guess I'm looking at it from multiple angles, but I don't know. I guess from maybe a parent perspective, like parents just want to see you happy, successful, even if it's not what they intended, as long as you're walking down, what you wanted to do, then I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to articulate, but I think that's what I'm trying to say is,
Yeah. There's never been a better time that I can think of than for people to pursue something that they're passionate about. Let's be honest. Most people are stuck in their house. You don't know what your job is going to do over the next 6 months. It may go great. You may get canned. You don't know. The longer pandemic goes, the bigger chance there is for a big crash. I mean, you just don't know. It's too much uncertainty. And the fact is so many people live their life on an old thought of, if you don't go to school, get an education, and become an accountant, you're a loser. Yeah. And let's be honest, I've never talked to an accountant who loves what he does. I'm just saying, I'm not down. I have lots of accountant friends, lots of engineer friends, right? And I went to engineering school and dropped out of it to do something else. And I remember and the thought was, wow, I can do something with my hands. I can be creative. Every engineer was like, I'm good at math. I wasn't, but and I can be creative and use some of my ingenuity to design things. And they get out of it. They go get a job somewhere. And when they find out that they're writing reports and putting data in Excel sheets for 40, 50 hours a week. Right. And they start off with a decent pay scale, but then it eventually caps out pretty quick. And while they're in middle class America, they're just not happy. They just meander for 35 years, right? And then they get done and they tell their kids, well, what should I do, Dad? Like, well, what I did is this. And you can do that too, right? I'm
Right.
like, okay, Dad, I'll do that because I want you to be proud of me. And I get it. We mean so well for our kids, but we do the same thing with our kids all the time. We do it with sports, right? I'm not the put my kids in Olympics dad. I love sports. I love coaching my kids. My daughter is a bruiser. She does really good. She's only 6. My son is the best teammate anybody's ever had. He's just not the best player, right? He's
I'm
9.
weak.
I love him so much, and he is so enthusiastic. He practices, but he's tiny, right?
Yeah.
He just is. Maybe it'll change for him, but he's the guy that wants to chest bump every touchdown. He wants to, you name it, right? Plays flag football, lacrosse, anything. He'll play anything. And he's the hardworking kid. He's just not going to play in any Super Bowls anytime soon. Now maybe it'll change. I don't know. He's only 9. I'm just saying, right now he's just that guy with all the heart.
Yeah.
But I'm cool with that, right? But so many parents out there, you're trying to your goal. I heard Will Smith say this once. Your goal is to be the gardener, right? All you need to do is set the make sure the soil's right and make sure the environment is right and let the plant be what it's supposed to be. It's not there for you to turn a cucumber into a tomato. Okay. That's not your job.
That's good.
God has a plan for everybody and you need to follow it. Unfortunately, so many of us start off doing what our parents have told us to do and our friends tell us to do, or what society says, this is what a good, successful person looks like, and this is not. Well, it's time to scrap all of that and everybody to start just following what you're good at. It's never been easier to make money doing whatever the heck it is you love to do. Let's be honest. I mean, you can love something and make videos online and people will start buying it. So anyways, sorry for the rant.
That also brought up that purpose doesn't always look like a career either. So, I mean, once again, don't feel like you need to put yourself in that box just fear of what other people are going to say. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that venture would look like for said person, but don't limit yourself. We were all created for purpose and on purpose. You know what I'm saying? And so just whatever that is, I'm pro chase them dreams. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And people will never be satisfied in whatever you do. So you got to go after it, go after your vision, go after your purpose. And if God gave you something to do, if God gave you an idea, people are not always going to go with it. When God told Noah to build a boat, people was looking at Noah like he was crazy because they had never seen rain before. Nowhere in the scripture do you see that Noah was a craftsman. He didn't know what he was doing. He was following what he heard. And so that's what we have to do as leaders, bro. People are not going to understand, but in the end, they will get on the boat. Dr. Henry Cloud said, you have to be able to face losing some things in order to do the right thing. If you can't, you're stuck. That leads us to our read of the week this week, necessary endings. And how ironic, that's exactly what we've been talking about for the past 10 minutes or so. This book by Dr. Henry Cloud talks about necessary endings that we all have to go through in order to excel and to keep going in life. And as leaders, whether it be myself, John, or yourself, Kris, and those of you that are watching this, and those that will listen to this, if the pandemic hasn't taught us anything, there are some people that we've lost and that we wish we had back. But there's also a side to this that there are some things that we needed to lose. So when we do come out of this, we can go forward and be better. And sometimes God will put you in a situation that if he had not put you in that situation, you wouldn't have to let it go. So sometimes the situation forces you to be in the place that he needs you to be so you can have that necessary ending. And it's not really a period. It's just a comma. That necessary ending is leading to the next chapter that will be the greatest chapter in your life. Listen, this has been another episode of the Unscripted Authentic Leadership. We thank God. We're appreciative of our guest, Kris Whitlow, on. We want you all to definitely follow him on his Instagram page at Whitlow_Nation. That is at WHITLOW_Nation. And also his YouTube channel there is Kris with a K, Kris Whitlow, Whitlow. Kris Whitlow. You can follow him there on his YouTube channel. And as always, we definitely want our audience there here at the Unscripted Authentic Leadership podcast to continue to support us, follow us on our Facebook page there at Unscripted Authentic Leadership. And also you can follow us on Instagram at Unscripted Leadership. Those of you that will consume your podcast via streaming, you can find us on any major podcast platform from Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Buzzsprout, TuneIn, and etc. Those of you that are saying, listen, man, I've got a story that I want to share. I want to be a part of this Rise Up series. If you're interested in being a guest for our Rise Up series, feel free to email us at unscriptedleadership@gmail.com. You'll see that on the screen. And those of you that are listening to this, it is at unscriptedleadership@gmail.com. That's where you can email us, unscriptedleadership@gmail.com, if you're interested in being a guest for our Rise Up series. Listen, this has been another exciting episode of the Unscripted Authentic Leadership. And as we always, when we wrap up the end of the episode, we are here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next time, I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBron, and our special guest this week, Kris Whitlow, wishing you a happy week and a happy Thanksgiving. Until next time, God bless you.